Story 1, 30. I do not want notifications. I check messages manually and have turned off all notifications in settings. My phone is on vibrate for text messages. Story 2. I am in my early 30s and have kept my phone on silent for about 10 years. I only turn it on when I am expecting an important call. Story 3. I am in my late 30s. My phone stays silent without being set to silent. The only phone calls or text messages I receive are from work. I also receive application notifications. Otherwise, I do not receive messages from anyone. Story 4. No. I am over 50, and my parents are elderly and in poor health. I silence the ringer when I am sharing an office as a courtesy, but the rest of the time it is on. Story 5. I am middle-aged. Most apps have notifications disabled, except text messages, WhatsApp, and calls. I do not set my phone to silent unless it is bedtime. I prefer to minimize disruption from pointless notifications rather than silence the phone. Make those beeps count. Story 6. I used to pay for ringtones. Now, if this hunk of glass in my pocket vibrates too loudly, I get annoyed. Story 7. Silent mode does not work at all. The vibrations are far too distracting. I recommend that everyone use Do Not Disturb mode or, even better, airplane mode. Story 8. The vibrations are not strong enough for me to notice, so I end up missing calls and text messages. I created custom ringtones and sounds and keep the volume low. Story 9. I am 26 and have kept my phone on silent since a burnout at 22. A simple way to avoid overstimulation is to silence your phone. Story 10. Always have my phone on vibrate. I have a smartwatch to notify me of calls. I don't need an offensive ringtone that embarrasses me or annoys others. There is also the worry of being in an important meeting and forgetting to turn the phone off. Then you have the embarrassment of everyone looking at you while you take out your phone. Turn it off and apologize. Story 11. Age is irrelevant, as I have always kept it on silent or vibrate. Story 12. If everyone in my family is home, it is kept silent in the kitchen, but if anyone is still out, it is poised for action. Story 13. I am 25 years old, and my phone has been on vibrate since my parents bought me my first one. I was in school and could not have it there. I then went straight into the workforce where I also could not have sound. There is no point in turning it on or off. Story 14. 28. The phone ringer is on, but text and email notifications are silenced. Story 15. I'm 28. My ringer is almost always on now that I have a baby with extra health needs because we get calls from doctors often. But during nap times the ringer is definitely on silent. There is actually nothing worse than realizing it was too late. Laughing out loud. Story 16. At almost 40, the cell phone has been on silent for the last 15 years. Story 17. I get calls from work at 7 in the morning, so I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb and turn the ringer off. I do not like the noise of notifications or people looking at me when it goes off. Story 18. Old enough that I unironically used all that and a bag of chips and talked to the hand. My phone is always on silent because I work in a hospital. Story 19. I am over 50. My phone is always on silent unless my significant other is away and I do not want to miss their call. Story 20. I am in my 40s and always have my phone on silent unless I am expecting an important call. Story 21. Nearly 60. My phone is always off unless I am specifically expecting a call. Then I immediately turn it on. Please, fellow older people, turn off your camera shutter sound. It is pointless and very annoying to people around you. Story 22. I am in my early 50s. I always keep my phone on silent and never answer unknown numbers. Story 23. In 2007, I landed my first real grown-up job in a corporate setting. During my first meeting, my phone rang and disrupted it. My boss pulled me aside and respectfully pointed out how inappropriate it was to have my phone out of my pocket and that I should have turned the sound off. Since that day, my phone has been on silent or vibrate and has not made a peep. Story 24. 21. I have my phone on silent except for calls from my mother, sister, and girlfriend. Story 25. I'm 20, And I never do that because nobody messages me anyway. Haha. Story 26. I am 29 and always keep my phone on silent, unless I am expecting an important call. I get up for work at 3:30 a.m., and my sister-in-law does not work and has no care in the world. So she calls me 8 times at midnight to ask the dumbest questions. Story 27. I am 46, and my phone has been on silent since I got my first cell phone in 2001. I never allow my phone to ring except the day my wife gave birth, because I did not want to miss calls from family. Story 28. Silent. I did not like phone calls when the only option was a phone on the wall. Maybe I did as a teenager, but you had to answer because you were never sure how important it might be. Now send me a message and I will decide whether it is important or not. Story 29. I'm 44 and keep my phone on silent with notifications off. I have a couple of contacts on emergency bypass. That helps me avoid using my phone so much. Story 30. I am in my 30s. I used to keep my phone on vibrate, but once we started working from home, I found I was leaving it around the house and missing calls and messages. I now have it set to ring. Story 31. I am 47. In public, my phone is set to silent or vibrate so I do not disturb others. When I am alone, I am extremely loud. Please, for the love of God, stay off the speakerphone in public. Story 32. My phone, except for the alarm clock, has been on silent for many years now. I am 48. Story 33. I keep my phone on silent unless I am expecting an important call. Story 34. I am in my late 30s and I am working. If I wanted to be bothered, I would let you know. Story 35. My phone stays silent unless I am expecting an important call. Story 36. 57. Silent. I can lift to check if I decide I have time to be contacted. My alarm is as loud as an air raid siren because I don't want to risk sleeping in, and it's funny to frighten the dog at 5 a.m. Story 37. I started keeping my phone on silent sometime in 2015. I was not going to answer at work regardless, and 99% of the calls I received were robocalls or solicitations of some kind. Story 38. I am 52 years old and disabled. I spend my day in front of a computer, so most of my communication comes via Discord or other apps on my personal computer. I do not get many notifications on my phone. In fact, I have turned off all notifications except the ones I want. I use my phone to be contacted when something is time-sensitive because I am slow to check notifications on Discord, and I check my email about once a week if I am lucky. I keep the sound on so it will catch my attention. That said, I will turn it off if I do not want to be disturbed. If there is an emergency, you can call. Story 39. Leave me alone. That's why my phone is on silent. Story 40. 38. I keep mine silent. I get all alerts through my Apple Watch so I don't need the additional sound. Story 41. Absolutely not. I assign different tones to each app and even to different chats in WhatsApp. They are brief, and the volume rarely exceeds halfway. Being able to know exactly which chat or person just went off in my pocket without having to look at it is so convenient it should be considered a superpower. Use your smartphone smartly. Story 42. Yes, I do it unconsciously because I do not like waking up. Story 43. Social media notifications are always silenced. I use a work mode that silences everything except my coworkers and my emergency contacts, in case something happens at home and someone needs to reach me. I have it set up so that in an emergency anyone can call me twice and get through. The same rule applies when I go to sleep. Story 44. I always keep it on silent and disable all notifications except for my partner and family. Tranquil. Story 45. I keep my phone silent unless I am expecting a call from someone important. The phone is for my convenience. Story 46. I'm 31 and my phone is on silent. My fiancée is 29, and her phone is loud enough for people in the next town to hear it ring. I like to think we cancel each other out. Story 47. I always keep my phone on Do Not Disturb because I check it anyway. Story 48. I am in middle school and I always keep my phone on silent, even when I probably should not. I tell myself I will fix it, but I never get around to it. Story 49. I am almost 35. I keep the sound on, keep the volume low, and disable most notifications. I only enable notifications for Facebook Messenger when my mom messages me, so it is not too noisy. Story 50. Loud during the day so I will not miss anything. Silent at night. Story 51. I am 21. My phone is always on silent and I keep it close so I can feel the vibration when someone calls. I do this to avoid disturbing anyone. I find it impolite and get annoyed by disturbingly loud or unusual ringtones. Story 52. I am in my late 30s, and my phone is always on silent unless I am expecting a call from my doctor. Story 53. I am 33, and no, because I don't need to. I have no friends or partner. My phone is a glorified alarm clock. Story 54. I am 24 and almost always silent. I got in the habit during high school and college, and I never stopped. Story 55. 58. Always on silent. It's annoying when you hear someone's notifications go off all day long. Story 56. I am in my 30s, and no, I do not. I have a large family, and there have been many times I received emergency calls about health issues or someone being stranded on the road. I have children, so when their school calls, I want to answer. I also have many doctor appointments myself, so receiving calls about specialist appointments or test results is essential. I silence my phone when I am in an appointment, at a restaurant, or in similar situations. Story 57. I am 56 years old. I keep my phone at full volume at all times. I am on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for my tenants in case there is a problem at one of my properties. I manage my own properties. Story 58. 25. I keep it on all the time unless I am at work and want to listen to music. Story 59. During the day my phone is mostly silent unless I am expecting an important call, in which case I set it to ring. At night I put it on Do Not Disturb but keep the ringer on so my favorite contacts, also known as family, can reach me. The only reason I would receive a night call from them is an emergency, so I want to hear it. Story 60. I typically keep my phone on vibrate. If I have it on me, I can tell when it rings and do not need to bother anyone with a ringtone. When I work from home, I keep the volume up so I can hear it if I walk away. I do not like missing phone calls. My phone usually sits on a charger on my desk, so I do not always hear or see it when it is on vibrate. I am 40 years old. Story 61. 18 and always silent unless I am outside with friends. Story 62. On the plus side, your question just reminded me to turn off silent mode. I put it on silent during a company dinner more than a week ago and forgot to turn it off. I do not answer phone calls. When someone calls, I look at the phone in disgust and say things like, "If you were someone I would be willing to talk to, you would know to text." I do not keep it on silent because my wife sometimes calls. She is one of maybe 3 people I am actually willing to talk to. Story 63. I am in my early 20s. I keep my phone on silent because I do not like to be disturbed by small noises or movements. My family asks me to turn the ringer on when they call because they want to make sure I am okay, especially since I have epilepsy. Story 64. Older than I look, younger than I feel. I keep my phone on silent because notifications go to my smartwatch. Story 65. 57. Silent. Smartwatch vibrations on if I am expecting a call or text that cannot be missed. Story 66. I am 23, and my phone is on vibrate. It is an old habit from back in school and university. It is more convenient to keep it on vibrate. I will feel it if I get a message or a call, but I will not bother everyone around me. Story 67. I keep it on silent, but I have more than 10 emergency contacts. Story 68. I am 31. My phone is mostly on silent unless I am expecting an important call or whatnot. I am usually in public, so I consider it rude to have the volume up. Vibration is enough to tell me I have a text, a call, or an email. Story 69. I am a 53-year-old female. My phone is on silent whenever I am not working. I do not like it to make noise unless it is telling me I have a DoorDash order to pick up. Story 70. Always silent. Never miss anything when my Apple Watch is paired. Story 71. I put my phone on silent in 2016 and never turned it back on. Laughing out loud. Story 72. My phone is never on silent. I put it on silent for meetings and sometimes forget to take it off for a day. But I do not put it on silent to go to bed or just to avoid being bothered. Story 73. I am 24 and keep it on vibrate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The sound is annoying. Story 74. It has been silent in all forms for about a decade. Story 75. Not really, because I have call protection on my phone. Anyone who calls gets the message. This customer has enabled call protection. Please press a random number to connect this call. The only people who get through to me are those with legitimate reasons to call, which are usually my boyfriend, my parents, or the doctor's office, and I have them whitelist. If I do not want to answer, I will send them to voicemail. I turn my text ringer on and off during the day depending on my mood or what I am doing. Story 76. I'm in my 30s, and my media is silent, but notifications make noise. My peers give me a hard time about this and call me a boomer for using sound. I honestly don't get it. The phone has speakers for a reason. I get about 10 text messages a day at most and a few emails too. It's not like my phone is constantly making noise. Because I use Android, I have different tones for different things. For example, the email tone is different from the text message tone. So I can hear a notification and know whether it requires attention without stopping what I'm doing to look at my phone. But fuck me, right? Story 77. I am 48, and if my phone ever actually rang, I would throw holy water on it because I have never had it on silent. I could not even tell you what my ringtone is. Story 78. 52. My phone has no ringer, which is the bane of my existence because I cannot ever find it either. Text me or leave a message. I will figure it out. Do not call. Story 79. 34 today, and it is always on silent. I wear a smartwatch. Story 80. 58. 100% of the time on silent. I do not need audio when a vibration will do. Story 81. I am 43 years old. My personal device is on silent 99% of the time. The only time audio is on is when it is connected to my car or when I am going for a run. My work device is on silent from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day. With my phone on me most of the time, I do not need audible notifications. Anything urgent, like a phone call, will vibrate. I browse Reddit and other social media on mute. I do not care for the music people attach to posts. Maybe once a week something will spark my interest enough to unmute and listen. Story 82. I am 21 and have always kept my phone on silent. I can mark certain numbers as priority, so calls from people such as my parents or siblings will still ring. I will return other calls when I see them. Story 83. My phone is on silent almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and has been since I was in high school. Story 84. My personal phone goes into Do Not Disturb mode at 10 p.m. and returns at 7 a.m. My work phone goes into Do Not Disturb at 6 p.m. and becomes active at 7 a.m. Notifications are mostly silenced anyway. Story 85. At almost 40, I generally keep my phone on silent because I had worked the night shift for many years and it has become automatic. The constant beeps, alerts, and dings during the day would drive me crazy. Before the night shift, I did not keep my phone on silent and I enjoyed choosing ringtones and alert sounds. Story 86. It is healthier to mute most notifications on your phone. This lets you control when you focus on the device instead of allowing distracting or meaningless notifications to reduce your attention span. Story 87. 43-year-old male. At work, my phone is silent for obvious reasons. At home, my phone is on during the day and silent after 9 o'clock in the evening out of respect for others until about 9 o'clock in the morning. I live with roommates. In public, my phone is on unless I am at a place of worship, in which case it is silent or on vibrate out of respect. At a friend's house, my phone is on unless asked otherwise. I have some sound effects that make people laugh because of the timing. I have the song What by Darkman X, which often makes people laugh. On WhatsApp, I use an Oh for God's sake sound, which again makes people laugh. Story 88. Only turn the ringer on if I am off work and charging my Apple Watch. There is no reason to do so. Story 89. I'm 28 and my phone is always on vibrate mode. That's enough for me to know someone wants to reach me without being disruptive. Story 90. Silence is the way to go, especially if you work around other people. Story 91. The phone has been on silent since the iPhone 4S was the hip new thing. Story 92. I am 41, and I don't answer phone calls. Everyone close to me knows this and will only call if it is vitally important and time-sensitive. Many people avoid calls because of anxiety. I avoid them because I hate being on the phone. Feels the same as filling my car with gas. I can text and do other things to keep myself stimulated, which I cannot do during a phone call, so phone calls are agonizingly boring. It might sound selfish, but I need constant stimulation, and I can't get it when I'm on the phone. Story 93. I won't say my age, but my phone is always on silent. I enjoy being left alone. If I feel like checking my messages or calls, which is not often, I will. Story 94. I am 27 years old. Not only do I keep my phone on silent, I had it turned off from December 23rd to January 2nd. It was great for peace of mind. Story 95. I am 33 years old and keep my phone on silent 99.99% of the time. I only turn the sound on if I am waiting for a delivery or a job offer. Story 96. I turned 32 yesterday. I always keep my phone on silent and vibrate mode. It has become a habit, and I do not like the little noises it makes during the day. Story 97. Silent for everyone except certain family members. If my children actually call, it is probably urgent and I do not want to miss it. Everyone else can wait. Story 98. I'm 49, and if my phone so much as makes a single peep, it's going out the fucking window. I don't like noise. Story 99. I am a 25-year-old female. I keep my phone on silent at night when I sleep and when required, such as during concerts, theater performances, and so on. Story 100. I am in my 50s. Do not disturb at all times. Only my wife is set up as an exception. I have anxiety. Phone ringing triggers me. Story 101. My phone has probably been on silent since I got my iPhone at age 20 or 21. Story 102. I am 45. No, I do not keep my phone on silent because my kids, age 12 and 15, might try to contact me. Story 103. I only have my phone on silent at the movies and during events like funerals and meetings. Otherwise, I usually have my phone on vibrate. As a mother, I want to make sure my son has access to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My phone also has a wonderful virtual secretary that keeps spam away. Story 104. 65 minutes, and only in certain circumstances. Otherwise, I cannot miss a work message or a message from someone I want to hear from. Story 105. I am 32. My phone is on Do Not Disturb because my Fitbit watch receives notifications. Even before I had a smartwatch, my phone was on vibrate all the time. I do not need the whole world to know I am getting notifications. Story 106. I'm 36. My phone is always on vibrate and set to Do Not Disturb after 9 p.m. It's not like I have a cool ringtone for people to hear anymore. Laughing out loud. Story 107. I am 54. I never put my phone on silent before, but that is not a bad idea. Story 108. I do not get many notifications, so yes, my sound is on. Story 109. I am old enough to know that the best idea is to schedule Do Not Disturb during certain hours. Story 110. I am 39 years old. My phone has been on silent for years. I do not even know what ringtone I use because I no longer expect calls. Laughing out loud. I work at night and sleep during the day, so silent mode is mandatory for me. I like to be alone and not be bothered by anyone. Story 111. I am 33 years old. I set my phone to vibrate 95% of the time and to a loud ring 5% of the time because I am waiting for a call I do not want to miss. Story 112. I am 22 years old. I do not usually answer unless someone I care about is sick and I am waiting for news. Other than that, I do not really care about people contacting me. Most of the time it is advertising anyway. Story 113. I keep my phone on silent except for calls from my wife and from the daycare that cares for my children. I am 36 years old. Story 114. I am 24, and I keep my phone on silent unless I'm at work or running errands with my mom. The only texts I need to see immediately are from my boss telling me when to wrap up work, or from my mom if we part ways and she needs to tell me something quickly. Story 115. I prefer to keep the wireless internet on my phone turned off. No one calls me anyway. Story 116. I am in my mid-40s, and it stays silent when I am working or sleeping. Otherwise, no. Story 117. I keep it on vibrate unless I am actively expecting a call or it is my work phone during work hours. I also set Do Not Disturb on every website and app that allows it, mute notifications on almost everything, and even play some games on mute. I have no patience left for annoying noises, pop-ups, and flashing lights. Story 118. I am nearly 50, and I prefer my phone to be on silent and set to vibrate only. Story 119. I am 22 years old. I prefer to answer when I feel like it. I also don't want my phone to go off while I'm working. Story 120. I am 17. My phone is always on silent because I am afraid of notifications at school. I never remember to turn the volume on at home. Story 121. My phone has been on silent for the last 10 years. Hearing text tones or the ringer irritates me. All social media notifications are off, and my phone is almost always on Do Not Disturb. I keep a phone because it is a fun distraction, especially when I am at work or at social events. Story 122. My phone is on Do Not Disturb all the time. If it made noise, I would probably throw it away. A very select few people on my list can still call or text me. I am 27. Story 123. I put it in sleep mode when I am about to sleep. Story 124. Male, 36 years old. I have my phone on vibration during the day and on silent at night. I honestly do not even know what my ringtone is. Story 125. I am 58 years old. My phone is permanently on silent, and I receive notifications and alerts on my watch. Story 126. Only when I am at work. If my mother calls or sends a text message, I want to hear it because I might be gaming or painting. Story 127. I am 33. I used to, but since starting the long-distance part of my relationship, I keep my phone on loud so I do not miss his calls. Story 128. I have not used a ringtone in 20 years. All my phones remain on vibrate. Story 129. My phone is always on Do Not Disturb. I like receiving messages, but especially now when I'm dating someone, I tend to get anxious. If I'm waiting for a message and it's just my friends spamming reels on Instagram or sending a bunch of snaps, I get a little disappointed. It gives me peace of mind to have it completely silent. My two closest friends, my brother, and my mom can call me in case something happens. Story 130. I'm 38, and I get interrupted frequently. When I'm interrupted in the middle of something, it completely breaks my flow state. Story 131. I am 28, going on 29. I hate the sound of my phone ringing. Story 132. I am 19 and almost always keep my phone on silent unless I am expecting an important message or call. It is just annoying to be pinged constantly for things that do not matter. Story 133. I am 20 years old and I do not want my phone to ring during classes. Story 134. I am 62 years old and a doctor. I cannot miss a message or a call when I am on duty, so my phone is almost never set to silent. Story 135. I am 38 years old and my phone has been muted since high school. The only exception is when I am on call at work. I have muted all other apps except the one for on-call notifications. Story 136. I am 29, and I keep my phone on silent because I am not supposed to have it at work, so I never break the habit. However, as a loophole, I wear a smartwatch to see if I need to take a call in the bathroom. It is strange how my job's rules ban phones but allow smartwatches. Story 137. I am 17. I do not care who calls or texts me. I do not know my ringtone because I have never heard it. My phone is always on Do Not Disturb and I like it that way. Story 138. 35. Always on silent. I have been doing this since 2007. I will check it and respond when I want to. Story 139. I am 31. I keep my notifications set to silent, but I keep my call volume turned on when I am not at work. Story 140. I am 55 years old, and no, my phone is set to silence unknown callers not in my contacts and to send them to voicemail instantly. It does not bother me unless the caller is someone I want to be bothered by. Story 141. Ringer is off and Do Not Disturb is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Only text messages from my parents get through. Story 142. I am 30. My phone is on silent, and I turned off vibrate. I check the time a lot because of work, so if someone calls or texts I will see it soon enough. Volume is only on if I am expecting an important call, which is very rare. Story 143. I am a 56-year-old man. My phone is always on silent because I am deaf. My smartwatch vibrates for incoming calls, and my phone connects to my Bluetooth hearing aids so I rarely miss calls. I prefer to keep the phone on silent because I am unlikely to hear it and do not want to disturb others. Story 144. I am in my late 30s. I have had my phone on vibrate for probably the last 15 years. Story 145. I dropped my phone. Now it decides when it's in silent mode. I am at its mercy. Story 146. No, I actually want to be notified of incoming calls, and I have a really cool ringtone. Story 147. I am in my 40s. I stay silent most of the time because notifications can be annoying, and in public spaces where there is already so much noise, I do not want to add to it. Story 148. I was mobile for work. I had a pager and then cell phones. I would drive to the site, and when I got there, I would be working. When I got home, I did not listen to voicemails, text messages, or emails, and I did not call anyone back. If anyone did not like it, they could call someone else with their problems. Sooner or later, they stopped pestering you, got their act together, and asked what they wanted to ask when I called them. Story 149. When it goes off, it makes me want to throw it at a wall. Story 150. 31. My phone is rarely audible except with AirPods. I talk to whomever I want, whenever I want. The people who need to reach me in an emergency have settings to allow that. Story 151. I am 22. Yes, it is always on silent because nobody wants to hear that noise. Story 152. Number 43. The notification sounds might be important, and it does not make many sounds per day. Story 153. 40. I haven't had my phone off silent since I was in my mid-20s. Story 154. I am 44. I have been completely deaf for 5 years. I bought a Fitbit that vibrates whenever I get a call or a message. Story 155. I'm 40. My phone has been on silent since I was 25. I never liked it. Story 156. I am in my early 40s. I do not keep my phone on silent, but it is set to silence unknown callers. I do not receive notifications for unknown text messages, and I have turned off notifications from many of my apps. Story 157. My phone is almost always on Do Not Disturb. Important people can get through. Anyone else, if it is important, will leave a message. Story 158. It drives me absolutely insane when people type loudly in public places. Why do they do that? Story 159. Finally, someone else thinks being a slave to your phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is almost cult-like behavior. Story 160. Yes, always on silent. My phone hasn't actually rung since I started using smartphones. I hate the constant beeping. Story 161. I am 28. I am a mix. 70% of the time my phone is on silent, but there is that rare 30% when I turn the ringer on for something important. Laughing out loud. Story 162. When I was 21, I put my phone on silent as soon as I got it. I keep vibrate on for certain notifications and turn everything else off. The only time I turn it off is when I'm playing games and want to hear voice lines of my favorite characters. Story 163:31. Now, I do not have many friends or use much social media, so my phone stays fairly silent. I tend to misplace it around the house, so I ask my Nest Hub to find it. Story 164. Well, I'm 29. I put my phone in airplane mode from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on workdays because I get a lot of scam calls, and anyone who needs to contact me can do so through social media. I do like the meme ringtones I set on my phone, though. Story 165. 54 years old. It has been silent for at least a decade. Scam calls. Story 166. Somewhere in my 20s, my phone is on silent with all vibrations turned off. I hate when my phone is loud or vibrates. Calm down. It's not that serious. Story 167. I am a 28-year-old male. My phone is always on silent except when I am on call for work and might receive a call in the middle of the night. Story 168. Yes. I am 21 solely because the sound of typing is extremely annoying. I am laughing my ass off. Story 169. I am 38 and my phone is never on silent because I do not want to miss emergency calls from my daughter's school or from my father, who is getting older. Story 170. I am 74 and do not keep it on silent. I keep the volume low. I ignore it most of the time. I ride motorcycles almost every day and keep it in my back pocket. I do not need the distraction. Story 171. Turning 60 this year, I wish my phone would ring. I'll leave it on all the time but never answer if I don't know you. Story 172. I am in my 30s and my phone is almost always on silent. It is hard to believe I used to pay for ringtones. Story 173. I am 35 and my phone is always on silent mode. I decide when to look, not my phone. In public, this applies twice. Others should not be bothered with any notifications. Story 174. I am 24, but my phone does not get any calls anyway, so there is no point in silencing it. Story 175. I am 27, and my phone is always set to do not disturb. I would be embarrassed if it went off at work, at school, or at the gym. I also receive so many spam calls I cannot keep up. Based on why you asked, I would assume older people do not use it as much. First, I am always getting text messages, Instagram direct messages, and other notifications. I use my phone often, so when I am doing something else, I want to completely disconnect. Second, I would be embarrassed if it went off in public. But maybe older people do not work in offices, are retired, or do not have jobs that require immediate notification. On the other hand, some may have roles that require being contacted right away. I do not know. Also, the older people I know are often worried and anxious about small things, so maybe they need immediate notifications when their children are calling. My sister and I used to call my father at his office landline a dozen times or more per week. Thank goodness I am not responsible for anyone yet. Story 176. I am 18. During the day, I attend university. At night, I sometimes keep my phone on silent in case someone needs to call me. Story 177. Ever since I got the new iPhone, I have set it to reduced interruptions. I only have notifications for text messages and phone calls. I am trying not to be glued to my phone these days. Story 178. I am in my 40s and my phone is permanently on Do Not Disturb. Story 179. 24 silent. I would have the ringtone on, but if I turn it on while notifications are muted, some notifications still ding. So I said fuck it and turned it off. Story 180. Set it to go into sleep mode at midnight so my dumbass friends do not make a ding when I am trying to sleep. Story 181. My phone has been on silent since I got my first mobile. Story 182. I am in my mid-20s and my phone is on vibrate 95% of the time. I turn the sound on when I am somewhere very noisy, but even then I usually notice the vibration rather than the ringtone. Story 183. Only Signal has sound enabled. People who really need a reply can text me there or call me. Everything else is silent. Yes, people call me on WhatsApp and I never notice. I'm joking. Story 184. I am 22. I have an Apple Watch, so my wrist vibrates when I get calls. Other than that, I do not like sudden sounds. Story 185. My phone has been on silent for the past 20 years or more. Anyone who uses a ringtone outside their own home is extremely rude. Story 186. Silent or regulated do not disturb, so I can only hear when close ones are calling or texting. I would go crazy otherwise because I get overstimulated. Story 187. I am 33 years old, and my phone stays on Do Not Disturb mode. I blame my Aquarius moon for this. Story 188. I'm in my mid-30s, and my phone has been in Do Not Disturb mode for about a decade. Story 189. I have kept my phone silent since I was a teenager. Story 190. I turned 30 this year. My sound is on because I'm not on my phone as much anymore. I use Textra instead of the default messaging app, so I can set text tones for each contact. I clip TrueFacts audio and use out-of-context, ridiculous blurbs that make people ask what it said. Story 191. I am in my late 30s. I do not think I have ever had my phone's ringer turned on. I have had a cell phone since I was 17. I hate talking on the phone and prefer to text. Story 192. 40 and always on silent. I will deal with calls when I want to. Story 193. I am 24, and I keep my ringer on because I know how it feels to call someone over and over and get no answer because their phone is on silent. The story. Back in high school, I didn't have a car or a bike, and I didn't ride the bus because where I lived you had to register before the school year and pay $50 to $200 depending on how far you lived from the school, so my mom would drive me and pick me up. Where I live in Texas, temperatures can spike, and summer is very hot. I would get out of school and wait for my mom to pick me up. Sometimes she arrived in 5 minutes, sometimes she was already there. Nearing the end of my school years, she started dropping the ball on picking me up. One turning point was when it was 115 degrees Fahrenheit and my mom never showed up. I called and texted her with no response. After sitting inside for 40 minutes, security asked me to leave, so I had to walk home for the first time. Normally this wouldn't be an issue on cooler days, but the walk from my school to my house was a 3.5-hour walk, and about 30% of it was a super steep, undeveloped hill. In high school, I weighed 250 pounds. I was heavy but not immobile. About 1 hour 30 minutes into the walk, I developed a migraine, and it became painful to keep my eyes open. I called my mom, and she still didn't answer, so I kept going. 2 hours 15 minutes in, the migraine felt like my head was in lava and my right eye was burning and watering. I called my mom again, still no answer, and I kept going. 3.5 hours later, I made it home. The garage was open and my mom was outside smoking a cigarette and playing a game on her phone. She said, "Oh shoot, I forgot to pick you up." I fell asleep. I asked if she had heard her phone ringing. She said it had been on silent. I went inside, drank 2 bottles of ice-cold water, took a cold shower, sat in a cold bath for 30 minutes, and then lay in bed with the fans on full blast. That was when I told my dad I needed an electric bike, so he paid $5,000 for one. Another shorter story. My sister had an abusive ex, and my mom didn't answer her calls, so my sister had to call a friend to drive her to our house. My dad used to work in Afghanistan, and he constantly told my mom she needed to have her ringer on in case something happened to him. That came from a time his base was attacked and a rocket-propelled grenade went through the roof and did not explode. He really thought he was going to die and tried to call my mom to tell her he loved her and the kids and to say, "Tell the kids I won't be able to come home," but she never answered. In short, my mom keeping her phone on silent almost killed me, almost caused us to miss what could have been my dad's last words to us, and almost put my sister in danger. Moral: if you are someone who always keeps your phone on silent, I pray you never have a family member call you in an emergency. Because of this, I always keep my ringer on. Story 194. I am 27 years old. I work in sales and need to be available for my clients. I put my phone on silent 1 hour before bed. Story 195. 40 to 95% of the time silent unless I am waiting for a call or I am somewhere loud. Story 196. Our phones have been on silent for the last 12 years. We are not allowed to have our phones on us at work, although of course we all do. It was easier to leave them on silent all the time so as not to accidentally be that person whose phone rings during a meeting. Story 197. The only time I put my phone sound on is on Thursdays between 5 and 6 because I am on cover duty at school. I know the supervisor will call to tell me all the children have left because she does not like texting. She hates when I do not pick up, and I hate missing the call because it means I can go home. I know people who pick up their phone and look at it every time it makes a noise, and quite frankly, that would drive me demented. I look at it when I want, not when it bleeps. Story 198. I used to put my phone on silent when I was in school, but I no longer do. I have elderly parents at home, and I prefer not to keep my phone on silent because text messages would not be sufficient in an emergency. I also have a pleasant ringtone, so I keep my phone audible. Story 199. No volume for notifications or incoming calls unless I am expecting a call or a text and need to answer immediately. Story 230. My phone is on vibrate. I check it often, and nobody calls unless it's urgent. I'll feel it in my pocket or see it when I check it at work. Story 201. In my late 20s, I keep notifications enabled, but I have muted about 90% individually. Story 202. I am 26. My phone has been on silent ever since I got it because of a strict family and an abusive relationship. Story 203. I am a 45-year-old male and my phone is ringing. Let it ring. From the valleys of Carolina to the rivers of Illinois, let that motherfucker ring. In a Dave Chappelle voice. Story 204. I have mine on vibrate. When I was 20, I received a phone call at 4 in the morning. My then-girlfriend's mother suffered a stroke and died later that day. I would have been incredibly angry at myself if I had not answered the phone. Story 205. Play a sound or vibrate. I have several reasons I need to know if someone is calling or sending a text message. Story 206. I am 32 years old and my phone is on Do Not Disturb 24 hours a day unless I am expecting an important call. It has been that way since the Do Not Disturb feature was introduced on the iPhone. It started when I was a therapist and my phone vibrated intensely during a session because of a call. Never again. Now I choose when to be distracted or available. Story 207. I hate when my phone is not on silent. Whether it is texts or spam calls, I prefer no sounds. Story 208. I keep my phone on silent at work, but if I remember, I turn it on, especially when I am expecting a call since I do not always feel the vibration. I just do not like the tactile feedback all the time when it is not on silent. I could always turn that off in settings, but it is nice to have Pantera play when I get a call. I am laughing my ass off. Story 209. I am a 37-year-old female. I have my phone set to mindfulness or focus mode scheduled from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I even have my messages app tucked away on the third screen because I do not want to see the number of notifications when I am browsing my phone. It is for my sanity. I cannot stand the constant notification sounds. I grew up in the 90s, when people did not have to be constantly available at the drop of a hat. Story 210. Custom notifications. My phone notifies me about job shifts, emails from my college and my work account, and texts from my partner and my sister. That is about it. Story 211. I am 38 and my phone has not made any noise since my first cell phone in 2006. Story 212. I am 35, and yes, I keep my phone silent unless I am expecting a call. I do not consider myself particularly important and do not receive many calls. I would gladly call someone back if I saw a missed call. Story 213. I am in my late 30s, and my phone has been on silent around the clock for at least a decade. I still have a home phone in case of emergency, and only 3 people, my husband and my parents, know the number. Those 3 are the only people I care about who would contact me in an emergency. Story 214. At 28, I never had the ring on unless I knew I was expecting an emergency call. Story 215. 29. Yes, because when I was a kid, if my phone made a sound, my nosy parents would interrogate me about it. It is silent because I do not want anyone else to know if someone contacts me. Story 216. I am 75, my phone is always on silent mode, and because I am deaf, there is no point in ever turning it on. Story 217. 33. Besides the alarm, it only plays sounds when I am expecting a call. Story 218. I keep my phone on vibrate. Some people just annoy me, but I leave it on for my family. Story 219. I am 25 years old. My phone has been on silent for as long as I can remember, at least 8 years and probably longer. I only turn on sound notifications when I am deliberately expecting an important call or text. Story 220. I keep my phone on vibrate anytime I'm awake. I only allow it to make noise when I'm sleeping, in case of an emergency phone call or my alarms. If I'm receiving spam messages in the family group chat while trying to sleep, I turn on Do Not Disturb, so if one of them dies suddenly, I won't find out until at least the next morning. Story 221. I remember in 2004 I made a ringtone that was a Guns N' Roses song. Now it is always silent. I had a job where it rang every 30 minutes, both early in the morning and late at night. I hate when my phone even vibrates now. I hate the fucking thing. I've been shopping for flip phones, though it may not stop the ringing. Story 222. For the most part, my phone stays in silent or vibrate mode because I am either at work or I do not want it to make loud noises when a notification pops up. Story 223. I'm easily distracted. My phone doesn't even vibrate. Story 224. I have children, so unfortunately I need to. 99% of the phone calls I receive are spam. Story 225. I do not keep my phone silent because I have no one in my contacts list. Story 226. I am 70 and keep my phone set to ring mainly because the only people who call or text are those who really need to get in touch. I have every notification turned off except for text messages and phone calls. Story 227. I didn't know turning your ringer off was so common. Most people I'm around keep their ringer on just in case I misplace it and need to call. For notifications, though, I turn them off. Story 228. I am 60 and my phone is always on silent except when I go to sleep. I have started leaving the ringer on at night in case there is an emergency with one of my 89-year-old parents. I hate getting phone calls and I now fear them at night. Story 229. Phone on silent with vibration turned off. I keep the lock screen notifications on so I can check if I miss something, but I never want my phone to choose when I look at it. Story 230. I have a Garmin watch that alerts me when someone tries to call or text me. I can choose to acknowledge the alert or ignore it. I am old. Story 231. Yes, because I used to get a lot more spam calls and it is extremely annoying. Story 232. My phone is not just on silent. All notifications are disabled unless they are from my emergency contacts. If you can't reach me, it's because I don't want you to. Story 233. 27. My phone is always on Do Not Disturb and placed face down. I screen all calls and texts. I think I'm antisocial. Story 234. Age 30. My personal phone is on silent at all times. My work phone is on ringer during work hours and when I am on call because of the nature of the job. Story 235. I am 31, and my phone is always on silent. Nothing is that important. Story 236. I am 18, so pretty young compared to the others in the comments, but my phone is completely dry. I get no texts or notifications. I keep it on silent and on Do Not Disturb, but whether those settings are on or off, I still receive nothing. Story 237. At 16, I do not have any friends, so all my notifications are from Reddit, Pinterest, and Twitter. Nothing I really need to check right away. Story 238. Over 60 and silent only at meetings, doctor appointments, movies, and concerts. Story 239. I keep my phone on silent at work because the surgeons do not want to be interrupted, and at night because I do not want interruptions. Story 240. 37. Yes. No sound and no buzz. I rarely turn it on, only when I expect a call I cannot miss, and I am very annoyed if I forget to turn it off afterward. Story 241. I am 22 years old. I usually keep my phone on silent, but not now because I am waiting for a call about a job interview. Story 242. I am in my 50s. It has been on silent since the day I got it. I despise phone notification sounds more than almost anything. Story 243. Mid-20s. It is on silent and always has been. If someone is calling, I can usually hear it vibrate anyway. Story 244. I am 30. I keep my phone on vibrate. I work nights, so I usually sleep during the day and well into the day on my days off. I do not want people bothering me with endless Instagram reels or TikTok videos. I will get to them later. I check my phone every couple of hours. If someone needs to reach me as soon as possible, they can call. My phone is usually nearby. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.